I was supposed to finish my double shift at 5 p.m., but my captain, Dan Kasner, told me to leave early since nothing serious was going on anyway. I'm a Minneapolis police lieutenant. My name is John Taylor. I am currently the liaison officer for the Northern Plains Safe Trails Drug Task Force. It sounds big, but to put it simply, it's a division of the D, and that would be a pretty accurate description. I gladly accepted Dan's offer to leave early and was heading home by 3:30 p.m. I live on the northwest side of the metropolitan area in Maple Grove, and the drive home took about half an hour. I was incredibly glad that I was able to leave early because after a double shift, I was completely exhausted. All I wanted was to go home, grab a beer, and relax until dinner. Then I was going to pay attention to my wife and finally get a good night's sleep. When I walked into the house, I noticed my wife Katie and her twin sister Sharon sitting by the pool talking. They were both topless, and believe me, there are no four more beautiful views in the world. This was not new to me. They often sunbathed topless, and yes, even in front of me. In fact, I once dated Sharon, and yes, slept with her before I even met Katie. She was beautiful, hot as fire, funny and smart, all in one amazing combination. She remained like that now, and it didn't bother me at all to see her topless. It was Sharon who introduced me to Katie, and there was an instant spark between us. She was just as beautiful as Sharon, but there was something special about her that immediately attracted me. Yes, it was love at first sight, and oddly enough, it turned out to be mutual. Sharon noticed this too and laughing, said that she could not compete with love, and said a cheerful goodbye. She kissed me, asked me to take care of her sister, hugged Katie, and told her that she loved her and wanted her to be happy. After that, she left, leaving us alone. We got married a few months later and have been married for 5 years. We don't have children, but we started discussing the possibility of starting a family. I was confident that we were both happy together and were ready for this next step. Back in the present, I smiled when I saw them by the pool and thought it was perfect to go change into my swimsuit, grab a beer, and join them. Relax, drink beer, sunbathe, and enjoy the view. A great way to spend the rest of the day. I went upstairs, put on my swim trunks, and was on my way downstairs when Katie and Sharon came into the kitchen. They were very excited about something, and I noticed that Sharon was unhappy with Katie. Sharon's voice was loud as she asked, "How could you do this to John? He loves you more than anything in the world, and he will be heartbroken if he finds out that you cheated on him. I'm sure he will leave you if he finds out about the betrayal. Don't do this, Katie, please." Katie replied, "John will never know, and you won't tell him. I just have to do it, Sharon. We talked about having children, and when I become a mother, I will never be able to do that again. I just want to know what it is." When Phil danced with me on Saturday, he held me so close that I could feel him, and then I literally began to seethe. He was talking dirty to me the whole time and describing what he would do to me if he got the chance, and I wanted to have sex with him right there on the dance floor. When we returned home, I almost tore off John's main male spot. I had sex with him so passionately. And yesterday, Phil called me and said that he knew that John was leaving on Friday for a seminar and would be spending the night away from home. He invited me to dinner and promised to show me that he wasn't kidding when he said how he would fuck me. I couldn't help myself and told him yes. Sharon's voice sounded sad. "Katie, it will be the biggest mistake of your life to let Phil Swanson near you. He's a jerk, and you mean nothing to him. John adores you, Katie. You'll break his heart. He is the best man in the world. He's handsome, he's fun to be around, and yes, he's a great lover. You know that I know this. How can you want someone else?" Katie replied, "I know John is wonderful. I love him to death too, and I don't want to hurt him. But he will never know, and this will be the only time I cheat on him. It will all be over, and we will start building a family, and I will never again wonder what it could have been, because I will do it. And even if he finds out, and he won't, I'm sure he loves me enough to forgive me and wants to move on." "You know, Katie," Sharon added, "you're betting your entire future on this calculation, and I think you're a fool for thinking that way. You may be able to hide it, you may never get caught, but you will always know that you cheated, and you will change, and who knows what will happen to your relationship. If you continue with this plan, you will lose. And Katie, honestly, you know I love you and always will, but if you do that, you'll lose my respect. That's it. The conversation is over. I won't discuss this anymore. Let's go back to the pool and finish our drinks, and then I'll go home. Please think carefully about what you are going to do. I was shocked by what I heard. I felt good knowing that Sharon had my back, but I was already heartbroken by what I had learned. It turns out that Phil Swanson, one of our mutual friends, was just as interested in Katie as I was, but the problem is that he is not her husband. I am, and he will have to pay for it. I knew that I couldn't go out to them now because I was too angry. I could have done something that would have ended up getting me in trouble. When they went back outside to the pool, I quietly went back upstairs, got dressed, and walked out of the house to my car. As I drove further away from home, I dialed our home number, knowing no one would answer, and left Katie a message. Katie, I got off early today, and I'm going to the cavern for a beer with the guys. I've had a long shift, and we'll just relax a little. Don't wait for me with dinner. I might be back late. See you later. Love you. I got completely drunk. There is no other way to call it. I allowed myself to relax, and by 10 o'clock in the evening, Bill, the bartender at the cavern, called me a taxi and sent me home. I don't remember anything until I woke up around 9 the next morning. Katie left me a note, and it was quite unfriendly. She was clearly angry that I had come home drunk and ruined her plans to spend the evening with me before I went to the seminar. She tried to explain in detail what exactly I had missed, and added that I might have to wait until I returned to receive affection from her, and maybe even longer if she was still angry. She didn't even know that I got drunk on purpose because of her and didn't want to make love to her at all, either that night or perhaps ever again. I called the captain and explained my situation to him, asking permission not to go to the seminar. Then I spent the whole day doing what husbands do when they find out they've been cheated on, only I did it sooner than I expected. I went to the bank and transferred half of our savings to a new savings account and a new checking account with just my name on it. I left the money in the joint checking account because I had no intention of stopping paying bills. I didn't want the law to put pressure on me. I then called my broker and transferred half of our entire investment to a new brokerage account that also only had my name on it. I transferred half of the funds in our money market account to my new checking account. I called all the insurance companies and changed the beneficiary to my sister-in-law, Sharon Burke, and then contacted my lawyer to begin the process of rewriting my will, removing Kathy from it and leaving everything to Sharon. Having done all this, I sat down and thought about how to finish what still needed finishing. At 5:30 p.m. my cell phone rang, and I saw it was Katie. I didn't answer and soon received a notification of a new voice message. "John, you're an idiot," she began. "You came home drunk last night, and now you won't even answer my calls. Well, mister, don't bother calling back because I won't pick up. See you tomorrow when you get home. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye." Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought about her reaction. She's going to cheat on me with Phil, and she's mad at me for getting drunk. Guess I'll just have to wait to see what happens after tonight. Around 6:30 p.m., Kathy and Phil were sitting at a table at Vito's Italian restaurant in Pine Springs, an eastern suburb of St. Paul. It was about 40 minutes from Maple Grove, and the restaurant had apparently been chosen for its privacy. They enjoyed a glass of wine before dinner, both looking forward to a great dinner and the sexual encounter to come. A large man in a dark blue pinstripe suit walked up to them with a slight smile on his face and asked, "Are you Katie Taylor?" When she responded in the affirmative, he handed her the folder and said, "You are officially notified. Also, your husband John asked me to give you this envelope." Then he turned to Phil, "Philip Swanson." Phil nodded, and the man continued, "This is a copy of the letter that was delivered to your wife, Sarah, this afternoon. It was also delivered to all your neighbors in Maple Grove and your parents in Oakdale. I wish you a pleasant evening." With these words, he turned around and left. Phil looked at the letter first and saw that it detailed how John had found out about Phil molesting Katie, what he had said to her, and what plans they had made while he was away. The letter said, "I don't know if they slept together previously or will continue their plans for this evening after they were exposed, but their actions are disgusting, and I just want everyone to know what a creep Phil really is." Katie opened the folder and found a familiar document. It was a separation order, fully executed. Sitting there with wide eyes, she quietly began to moan, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Tears flowed down her cheeks. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no." Finally, Phil said, "Katie, I think I better take you home." She looked at him and replied, "No, Phil, this has to end now, and I can't let you take me home. I'll call a taxi." Phil nodded, "I understand," and simply stood up, left the money on the table to pay the bill, and left. Katie knew that she needed to be in a private place to read the letter from John, so she asked for a taxi, and as soon as it arrived, she went home. When she finally got home, which seemed like an eternity, she simply sat down on a chair in the kitchen and, with trembling hands, opened the envelope containing the letter from John. "Dear Katie, by now you know, of course, that I'm aware of your plans to cheat on me with Phil Swanson. You're probably trying to figure out how I knew about this, and you'll probably conclude that Sharon told me. I must say that this is not the case. She had nothing to do with what I found out, and in fact, she is the best sister and friend you could have. If only you had listened to her. I came home early yesterday, saw you both by the pool, and of course couldn't wait to join you. I went upstairs to change clothes, getting ready to go out to you. I was standing on the stairs when you both came into the kitchen, and yes, I heard every word. I heard how Phil turned you on, and that you wanted him right on the dance floor. I remember that evening when you made love to me so passionately, and I felt disgusted at the thought that it was him, and not me, that caused it. I heard you say that you couldn't resist his touch, and that you didn't care enough about our marriage to resist him. You knew how much I loved you, and you thought you could use that to get me to forgive you and move on. I also heard what a true friend Sharon has been to me. She did everything she could to make you understand that she was going to destroy our marriage. Sharon did everything she could to make you understand that you were going to destroy our marriage, but you refused to listen to her and decided that you would go all the way. Katie, I loved you from the moment I first saw you, and you know it. I will probably love you forever, but I am not the kind of person who will let injustice pass by. That's why I became a police officer, and that's been my guide all my life. You probably already remembered that we signed the document that you now have in your hands. This is a notice of separation. When we got engaged, your parents were in the middle of a nasty divorce, and you were hesitant about getting married at all. We talked about it for hours and finally mutually decided to sign these separation papers as well as divorce papers so that if either of us ever wanted to leave the marriage, everything could be worked out amicably without questions or arguments. I served you with a separation notice today, and it will be sent to court on Monday morning. As you remember, separation will last up to 6 months. If we do not reconcile within this time, then, according to our agreement, divorce papers will be filed. My lawyer has all the necessary paperwork, and the process will start automatically unless I ask to stop it. Katie, I want you to think long and hard about what you did. You'll have plenty of time for this because I'm leaving. I requested a permanent appointment to the working group, and it was approved. As you read this letter, I have already gone underground and am working to dismantle one of the largest illegal substance distribution operations in our cities. It will take time and effort to penetrate their structure, and I expect to be inaccessible for quite some time. The only connection I will have is through my supervisor, Caroline Hofstetter. You can call her, but know that she will not be able to convey messages to me. It would be too dangerous if anyone found out. Dangerous for you and dangerous for me. Katie, I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about once I've cleared my head. Now, I don't know what else to say, and I don't want to hear your words. Regardless of the outcome, I promise that we will talk at least once. I sincerely hope that in the coming months you can figure out what makes you happy. Obviously, being married to me didn't provide that. Goodbye. And yes, I still love you. John. Katie sat at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her cheeks, wondering how she could have been so stupid. She knew that she was madly in love with John, and at the same time she understood that she herself had pushed him away. Even though she didn't actually sleep with Phil, she realized that she still cheated on her husband, and he knew it. In desperation, she did the only thing she could think of and called her sister Sharon. Sharon, John found out about Phil and sent me the separation notice we signed years ago. He said he needed time to think it over and I wouldn't be able to contact him because he'd gone undercover with the D. What should I do now, sister? Damn it, Katie, you had the best man in the world, the best friend and lover any of us could ever have, and you ruined it all for a fantasy about Phil. John is the only man I've ever loved, and I gave him to you because I saw that he loved you more than he could love me. Now I regret doing that because I would never have broken his heart like you did. Thank you, Sharon, Katie replied bitterly. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now. But I know you're right. I'll hang up and go cry until I fall asleep. Call me tomorrow or Sunday if you cool down, please. Listen, Sharon replied with a slight grin. Yes, I'm mad at you right now, but you know I'll get through this and I'll still be the sister who always gets you out of trouble. You know that. Good night, Katie. Try to get some sleep if you can, and I'll come over tomorrow to help pick up the pieces. Thank you, Sharon. Good night. A month passed, and on Sunday afternoon, I called Sharon on her cell phone. Hi, honey, it's John. Oh my God, John, it's so nice to hear your voice. How are you? Katie and I were so worried about you, and there was no way to know anything. She called Carolyn, and we learned that you were off the radar. I was told that even she has no idea what you are doing or where you are. Well, Sharon, I said, to answer your questions, I'm fine, and I suspected that Katie would be so busy with her fantasies about Phil that she was unlikely to worry about me. Secondly, I made a significant breakthrough in my work and decided that I could be more effective if I completely disappeared from view, so that's what I did. I know I'll get a reprimand for this when I come out of the shadows, but judging by the results, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now to why I called. When I found out what Katie was up to, I was deeply hurt, and of course it turned into anger. As you already know, we signed those agreements because of your parents' divorce. It was mostly Katie's idea, but it turned out to be the right decision. Now she is free to do whatever she wants, and this will eliminate some of the conflicts. I have a couple of questions and a couple of requests before I disappear again. First of all, is she dating Phil or with someone else? Did she sleep with him? Sharon replied, John, she didn't sleep with Phil that night or date anyone else. She didn't even let Phil take her home. She called a taxi. Believe me, I watched her, and she remains a faithful wife who is waiting for her husband. She's hurt because of what she did, and she's heartbroken that you left her. I'll tell you honestly, John, your wife is suffering more than you can imagine because of her stupidity. She will be immensely happy that you called, but I would like you to call her and not me. She really needs to talk to you. When will you be back? Sharon, I replied, I'm not going to call her. I'm sorry that she's suffering, but at the same time I want her to suffer. I want her to understand what her life will be like without me. I suffer too, I miss her, just like you, by the way, but she must understand what she has lost. If she doesn't learn to appreciate what we had, we won't have a chance at a life together. I'm at least glad that you think she's not sleeping with someone else, but so little time has passed, and I'll wait to see what happens next. I won't be back for a while. This project may take a couple more months, and it's safer for me and her if I remain completely disconnected from everything. I'll call you in a month to give an update, but I won't call her. And think about it. If you agree, don't tell her I called. I want her to have no doubt that she misses me, wants me, and needs me. I know it's cruel, but I didn't create this problem, and she will have to sort out her feelings. Lastly, I want to thank you for being the best sister-in-law anyone could ask for. I heard everything you said to Katie in the kitchen that day, and I'm sorry she didn't listen to you. Thank you for your support then, even if she didn't follow your advice. A man is lucky to have a sister like you. Sharon, I have to go. I will contact you in a month. Bye. Sharon wanted to say more, but all she could say was, Bye, John, she really loves you. When she heard John hang up, she said quietly into the void, I love you too, John. A month passed, and Sharon waited for another call from John, but he never called. 2 months passed, and her anxiety increased. She decided to call Caroline Hofstetter again to find out what was going on. Carolyn, this is Sharon Burke, John Taylor's sister-in-law. I'm worried about him. He called me a month after he went underground and talked for a while. He promised to call again in a month, but 2 months have passed and I haven't heard anything from him. Can you say something? Carolyn replied, Sharon, you are listed as John's contact, but unfortunately there is not much I can tell you. John went into deep cover and completely disappeared from our site. I don't know where he is, what he's doing, or if he's okay now. The only clue we have about his well-being is that our office has been receiving numerous anonymous tips about traders and deals that are about to happen. We made many arrests and were able to develop cooperation with several informants, which helped us move even further. Someone out there is doing an incredible job of providing us with information, and it's having a significant impact on commerce in the upper Midwest. I believe it's John, but of course I can't be sure. As soon as I have some verified information about John, I will let you know immediately. For now, we can only wait and hope for the best, unless, of course, someone notices it. Sharon was extremely alarmed by the news and, despite John's request, decided to share all the information with Katie. Even though her sister had acted stupidly, Sharon loved her and didn't want her to suffer any more than she already was. Almost another month passed when one morning Sharon received a call from Caroline Hofstetter. Sharon Burke. Yes, this is Sharon. I have information about John Taylor, but I can't give it over the phone. I suggest that we pick you and John's wife up and bring you to my office where we can discuss this in person. This sounds very serious, and now I'm really worried. Could you at least say something? Carolyn replied, Like I said, I can't discuss this over the phone, but I'm free this afternoon, and I'd suggest meeting at 1:30 p.m. Two agents will pick you up, Agent Pierce and Agent Jackson. Be sure to ask them for identification. And Sharon, please don't discuss this with anyone other than John's wife. Oh my God, Sharon exclaimed. This sounds terrible, and I'm scared to death, but we'll be ready by 1:30 p.m. See you. The expected knock on the door sounded, causing both women to jump. At 1:30 p.m., two agents, as instructed, identified themselves as Pierce and Jackson and escorted them to a black SUV waiting outside the house. Neither Katie nor Sharon felt any better. They were both overcome with anxiety. They were both thinking, what is this spy stuff? But they were silent. They soon entered the office of Caroline Hofstetter, who greeted them. It's nice to finally meet you both, she said with a smile. Which one of you is Katie, and which one is Sharon? Kathy stepped forward and said, I'm Kathy Taylor, John's wife, and this is my sister Sharon Burke, and as you can see, we are twins. Yes, of course, Carolyn smiled. Please, both of you sit down, and I will explain everything. Before we start, can I offer you something coffee, water, or something else? I think we have Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew. Both women responded in unison, No, thank you. This made everyone smile. Geminis are often so in sync. Sighing, Carolyn began, I'm sorry I have to give you bad news, but before you get scared, I have some good news too. The sisters both tensed and expressed obvious concern and anxiety. Oh no, oh God, what happened? Caroline continued, Please, ladies, calm down and I will tell you everything. John was wounded. He was wounded 3 times by gunfire. Both women screamed and cried, but Carolyn shouted, Stop it, let me finish, please. When Katie and Sharon calmed down a little, Carolyn continued, I'm sorry I yelled at you, but please let me finish. John was shot 3 times and is now in critical condition, but he is alive and doctors are confident he will make a full recovery. 2 bullets caused serious internal damage, but fortunately no vital organs were affected. Regarding the head, the bullet grazed the skull, but no severe brain damage was detected. There are 2 main dangers: infection and coma. However, there is no infection yet, and his condition is being closely monitored. Regarding the coma, doctors are confident that this is a temporary phenomenon, and they believe that his body will use this time to recover. Although it can be distressing for the family, coma helps reduce stress and pain, which ultimately promotes recovery. Doctors say his condition is stable. Katie asked, "Where is he? Can I go to him? When did this happen?" "John was shot 3 days ago. They tried to kill him on the orders of a merchant. It's a miracle that he survived. The killer shot twice in the chest and once in the head. We don't know why the bullets weren't fatal, but John survived. For the first 2 days, doctors fought for his life, but—" Caroline hesitated slightly, but continued. "I am aware of your marital status, Katie, because John specifically asked that you not be notified of his involvement in special operations. Given that his condition is stable and he is likely to recover, I was willing to not tell you anything and let John decide whether to tell you. But after weighing everything, I decided that you need to know." Katie already knew that John called Sharon once when she didn't know anything, and it made her angry, but now she was only focused on seeing her husband. "To answer your other questions, Kathy," Carolyn said, "John is in a secure medical facility and receiving the best treatment possible. And yes, you can be with him if you follow the strict rules that I will explain later." John worked undercover and collected information that would help completely destroy the entire illegal network in the upper Midwest. The cartel had already tried to kill him. Even after John testifies, his life will be in danger as they will continue to search for him. Therefore, if you decide to go to him, you will have to participate in the witness protection program and essentially disappear with him. You will have to completely cut ties with friends and relatives, quit your job, or take a long vacation. This is necessary for your safety. Katie, without hesitation, replied, "I will do anything to be with my husband. I love him and want to help him recover. If he wants to stay with me, I will be with him forever. Please take me to him." Sharon sat silently with her head bowed and tears in her eyes. She almost whispered, "I love him too." Carolyn and Katie both turned their heads sharply, surprised by these words. "I can't live without John, and I can't live without Katie. Can I come with you? I will do everything she does. I've always loved John, and Katie, you know I love you too. Please let me be there." Carolyn saw the sincerity in Sharon's eyes, and although it was an unusual request, she agreed as long as Katie didn't mind. Carolyn saw the sincerity in Sharon's eyes, and although it was unusual, she agreed to her request if Katie didn't object. Katie knew that Sharon had always loved John and understood that her sister cared about them both. There was always a special connection between them, and Katie couldn't say no to her. "Yes, I think it will be right for all of us," Katie said. "I know John loved me the most before. At least that's what he said. And I understand that he loved you, Sharon, and always appreciated that. Now I think you deserve to be with him as much as I do. I made a big mistake, and if John can forgive me, I will be happy, but I cannot deprive you of the opportunity to be with him. You were always there for us and supported us." Caroline frowned slightly when she heard this, but continued, "Okay, I can arrange it, but you both need to understand that now you will be taken to your homes to collect the things you need. Then you will return here to complete all formalities and prepare for a long absence from your usual life. I don't think we can do all of this today, so we'll provide you with a place to stay for the night. Tomorrow morning, you will be able to complete your preparations, and hopefully you will be taken to John by noon. Do you have any questions?" The sisters were full of excitement and exclaimed with one voice, "Why can't we go right now? We want to see him immediately." "Sorry, ladies," Caroline replied sternly. "Like I said, these are my rules, and you will have to abide by them. Believe me, it will be better for everyone." Later that night, when they were in a secure room in a safe house, both women cried together. They knew they would have to leave their past lives and friends behind, perhaps forever, but they both knew they couldn't lose John. They had been in a distant relationship with their parents since their difficult divorce, so this wasn't their biggest loss. They'd rather miss a few friends and distant relatives, but that wouldn't compare to what they might have lost their connection to John. Katie understood that John had no close relatives left, and his world revolves mostly around work, so he didn't have many friends either. She was sure that everything could work out if only John could forgive her stupidity and allow her to remain his wife. Katie hugged Sharon and said, "Sharon, I'm so sorry about all of this. You can't imagine how I feel right now. If only I had listened to you, this wouldn't have happened. If I had been content with John's love and not wanted something else with Phil, John wouldn't have left, gone undercover, and gotten shot. You wouldn't be forced to give up everything for us. I feel like I shot John myself. Why didn't I listen to you?" Sharon sighed. "You're right, Katie. You shouldn't have done that. But you did it, and for you, I will say, at least you found the strength to stop before you slept with Phil. You still cheated on John, even if you planned it, and that's something you have to live with. But I truly believe that you and John can get through this if only you truly understood your mistake and corrected yourself. I really want everything to be the way it was before." Sharon hugged her sister, adding, "I love you, Katie. You are my part, and I am your part." Sharon fell asleep quickly, but for Katie it was an incredibly long night. She lay awake, thinking and crying. Thoughts were spinning in her head without stopping. Only in the morning she was able to fall asleep briefly, but it was barely 3 hours of sleep before a knock on the door brought her out of this state. Agent Pierce knocked and said, "Breakfast will be in an hour, and we need to move out. Get up, ladies." By 11 a.m. they had showered, dressed, and collected all the necessary things. After a light breakfast, they completed all the necessary calls and paperwork before heading to John's. The SUV arrived a few minutes after 11 o'clock. The windows were darkened, and the partition between the driver and passengers made it impossible to see where they were going. At 12:30 p.m., the SUV stopped at the entrance to the Mayo Clinic emergency room in Rochester, Minnesota, about an hour and a half hour south of Minneapolis. They were ushered into the hospital and escorted to a secure waiting room. They knew that increased security was necessary, but it was still alarming. Finally, a representative from the Federal Marshal's Service approached them to explain the current situation. "You don't have to officially enter the Witness Protection Program until John decides whether he wants you to stay with him. Once he is fully recovered, he will decide what to do next," the representative said. When they were brought into the room, John was lying on his back in the hospital bed with his eyes closed. Bandages were visible on his head, and several tubes could be seen under the blanket that covered him. If one were to look at him without knowing the whole story, it would be difficult to believe that he was so close to death. The sisters sat next to him, and tears flowed down their cheeks. Dr. Mark Gordon, the physician responsible for John's treatment, came in and asked to speak briefly with them. "I need to give you some recommendations if you are going to be around John," the doctor said. "He is in a coma, but his subconscious may still be functioning. Therefore, when you are around him, it is important to be calm and not create stress. This is important for his recovery. Be gentle and comforting in your words and actions. Do you understand me?" Katie and Sharon nodded at the same time and replied, "Yes, we understand." The doctor smiled. It always amused him how twins could talk and act in sync. These twins are incredible, he thought, noticing how beautiful and caring they were. "Now go see him and spend time with him, but remember, don't create stress," he added. "Thank you, doctor. We'll do whatever we need to do," they replied in unison again, bringing a smile to his face. The sisters returned to John's room. Katie sat down next to the bed and gently took his hand. Tears filled her eyes again as she spoke quietly to him for the first time in 4 months. "John, it's me, Katie. I am here with you and will be there to help you recover. Just relax. Don't worry about anything. I am with you now and forever. Sharon is here too. We both just want you to get better. I love you, John." Sharon put her hand on his leg and added, "John, this is Sharon. We are both with you. Just get better for us. One of us will always be with you. You will never be alone. We want to see you smile again as soon as possible." As the days passed, the sisters kept their promise. They never left John alone. One of them was always nearby, and sometimes they both sat at his bedside. They held his hand, stroked his arm and face, and talked to him. We read books and magazines to him, listened to music together. Both of them cried often. Sometimes drops of tears fell on his hand or face, and they both kissed him tenderly. The doctors and nurses were amazed at the devotion and love these two women showed for John. Almost 3 months have passed since John was shot, and his physical wounds have completely healed. Doctors did not find any more serious problems. His skull had healed, and all damage to his chest had been repaired. Test after test confirmed that his body had fully recovered. Doctors didn't know when John would come out of his coma, but they believed it could happen at any moment. They were cautious in their predictions regarding his mental state after emerging from the coma, but they were confident that his vital signs were normal and there was likely no serious brain damage. One morning, about 8 o'clock, as Katie was sitting next to John, she suddenly noticed that he had opened his eyes. At first, she didn't realize he was awake, but when John tried to say something, she turned quickly and saw him looking at her. Katie screamed, "Doctor, nurse, John has woken up." Katie's scream caused a real commotion in the hospital. The nurses and doctors began to bustle around as if there was complete chaos all around. It seemed like no one knew what to do, but soon everything got better and the medical staff began checking on John's condition. They shined flashlights into his eyes, checked his ears and nose, and asked endless questions. At first, John could not speak, making only quiet sounds. Gradually, he began to answer questions with simple yes and no. By the time the doctors finished their examination, Sharon had already arrived to relieve Katie. She immediately sat down next to John, took his hand, and, with a stream of tears on her cheeks, quietly said, "Oh, John, I'm so glad you woke up. We missed you so much." After that, she just sat there, wiping away her tears. All this time, Katie remained on the sidelines and hardly spoke to John. She was afraid of his reaction. John looked at her several times with some confusion, as if he was trying to understand why she was not saying anything. Doctors soon discovered that John had serious short-term memory loss. He barely remembered what had happened over the past year. He could not remember his undercover mission and did not know that he had played a key role in the destruction of the network. The medical staff chose not to touch on the personal aspects of his life, as they were afraid that it would cause John shock, which could interfere with his recovery. Katie and Sharon looked at each other repeatedly, both asking themselves the same question. Should they tell John the truth about what happened in their marriage? The doctors asked them to wait a few days to see if John's memory would recover on its own and not to put pressure on him. After a few days, Katie felt it was time to talk to John. She sat down next to him, took his hand, and took a deep breath before beginning. "John, I need to talk to you. I love you so much, and I'm incredibly glad that you woke up and everything will be fine with you. I was very afraid for you all these months and wanted you to get well as soon as possible. I'm sorry you lost some of your memories. A lot of good things have happened over the past year, and I am ready to do anything to help you remember everything. But John, there is one thing I have to tell you about, and I'm ashamed of it, but I can't hide it." Katie started crying and couldn't continue. John hugged her, holding her close, and quietly said, "It's okay, Katie, tell me." Katie finally pulled herself together and continued, "John, I was going to cheat on you with Phil Swanson. You found out about this and sent me the separation papers we signed years ago. After that, you went undercover, and I haven't seen or heard from you since then, until you ended up here in the hospital. I'm terribly sorry that I did this. This was the biggest mistake of my life, and I sincerely ask for your forgiveness. Yes, I planned to cheat on you, but I didn't go through with it. I didn't sleep with Phil, and I haven't been with anyone since. Even that night, I left the restaurant alone in a taxi." Katie started sobbing again and continued, John, if I could go back and fix everything, I would. But I can't. I made this mistake, and you left because of it. I can't change it. I only ask you, please forgive me. John looked at her, breathing heavily from what he heard. He was shocked, but showed no outward signs of a strong reaction. Finally, he said, Katie, I need time to think about this. I don't know what to say right now. I'll ask you to leave me alone for a few days. I need to sort out my thoughts. Katie nodded, crying, and quietly left the room. 3 days have passed. It was Monday when John called everyone to a meeting. Katie, Sharon, Dr. Mark, and Nurse Carol entered the room. Before starting, John received a letter from his lawyer, William Barclay, who sent him important documents. The letter was as follows. Dear John, as you requested, the separation papers that you and Kathy signed upon marriage have been formally filed with the court. Since 6 months had passed since the filing, divorce papers were also automatically filed. From this moment on, you are officially divorced from Katie. If you have additional questions or need assistance, please contact me. Sincerely, William Barclay, attorney. With this letter in hand, John began meeting with those he had invited. I just want to thank you for being with me during this long time of recovery and these days when I could not remember the events that happened over the past year. I want you all to know that as of yesterday, I believe I have fully recovered the memory of what was lost. Doctor, I assume that there will be those who want to check this, but I believe that they will confirm my words. Now I want to discuss my personal situation. Dr. Gordon and Carol started to leave, but John asked them to stay a few more minutes. John continued, Katie, I have received notice that our separation and divorce papers have been filed with the court at my request, and we are officially divorced as of this date. There was a gasp of surprise from Katie and Sharon. Oh God, John, no, Katie howled. Why did you do this without giving me a chance to make things right and try to mend our relationship? John said, Katie, it happened automatically as soon as I filed for separation. This was part of our agreement many years ago. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to let the divorce stand, but I want to tell you why. You know that I loved Sharon and still do. Then I met you, and I realized that there was something between us, and I fell in love with you at first sight, even more than Sharon. But now the feeling is not the same. Oh yes, I still love you so much. How can I stop? But I don't love you more than Sharon. Your actions hurt me greatly, and it took a piece of my heart. One more thing, Katie, I'm not sure I can trust you again. Oh no, John, Katie said excitedly. I'll never do anything like that again. But, John continued, I have another reason why I don't think I can trust you. Dr. Gordon and Carol, the reason you're here is because I want you to confirm a conversation I heard in my subconscious while I was in a coma. That's what I heard. Mark, these twins are two very beautiful women. I'm sure you've already tried to hit on your sister-in-law. Well, yes, Carol, but she had no interest. She only seems to have eyes for John. But one day I thought I was flirting with her, and it turned out to be my wife, and she told me she wasn't interested. But then she smiled and added that perhaps after everything settles down, she will think about it. Katie gasped loudly. Strange expressions appeared on Mark and Carol's faces. John realized that what he heard was accurate, or at least close enough that the meaning could not be misinterpreted. Mark and Carol, was this really the conversation you were having in this room when you thought I couldn't hear you? I need an honest answer. At least once I want to know the truth. They both looked confused, but nodded in agreement. John looked at Katie as tears streamed down her face. Sharon glared at her sister and screamed, How could you do such a thing? What's wrong with you? John was very upset to hear the confirmation, but restrained himself. He turned to Mark and Carol and said, You can go. All I needed was confirmation of what I thought I heard. Now you probably understand that a person in a coma is really connected to what is happening around him. Dr. Gordon and Carol left the room. John turned to Sharon and said, Sharon, I plan to enter the witness protection program after I testify in court against all the defendants, thanks to the information I provided. This will be necessary because others associated with them will surely try to kill me after my testimony. I want you to come with me. I have always loved you, and you have proven your love and loyalty to me, which is simply incredible. I'm not asking you to marry me because I think I'm done with that, but I will love you no less for it. Will you come with me? John, you know I love you and I would love to go with you, Sharon said. But no matter how stupid my sister is, I cannot exclude her from my life forever. She and I are part of each other, and I can't do that. John nodded. He somehow knew that would be Sharon's answer, so he added, I knew you would say that. I knew what kind of person you were, and I fully expected that answer. I already said that I still love Katie, although I am terribly hurt and disappointed with her. But I still love her, and if you agree, I will ask her to come with us. I'm not going to marry her again because I don't love her more than you like I used to, and I still don't trust her. Will you come with me if Katie comes with us? Yes, I will, Sharon replied with a smile. Katie, I know this is a shock to you, but you have to admit that this is all your fault. I love you, but I don't trust you. I will never marry you again because if you are unfaithful to me again, I will simply leave your life. No noise, as they say. You deserve it. If you agree to come with us, then my intentions are this. I will live with both of you, love you both, and make love to both of you. I would like to have children with both of you. Yes, you will have to share with me equally. Our relationship will never be the same because your actions broke trust. You will live under this condition, Katie. If you ever cheat on me again, I will leave and take all our children with me. This is my promise to you. So, under these circumstances, do you want to go into witness protection with us and Sharon? By this point, Katie was sobbing, but she was able to answer, Yes, John, I want to be with you. No matter how stupid I act, I really love you, and my life will be meaningless if I can't be with you. I promise you that I will never be that stupid again. Then it's settled, Katie and Sharon. From now on, I will love you both equally. I want to build a life for all of us so that we can all be happy. With that, John hugged the twins and kissed them both. Katie's tears had dried, and they both smiled at John with the same smiles that had melted his heart all those years ago. He somehow knew that everything would work out. John testified in all the cases against the traitors and their bosses, and each of them was convicted of one or more crimes. His information turned out to be accurate, and the prosecution had no problem proving his guilt. All of them were sentenced to prison terms ranging from 5 years to life in prison without the possibility of parole. These cases became important events in the history of crime fighting. For his participation and testimony, John was moved along with his sisters. Their location is, of course, confidential, as John is still high on the list of targets for revenge. What measures were taken to conceal them? Not to be disclosed, but John, Kathy, and Sharon no longer exist. John is now a successful businessman, and as an added bonus, of course, he has 2 beautiful women in his life. He loves them both, and they love him. They always sleep together, and he often makes love to both of them on the same night, in the same bed. There is no visible jealousy between the sisters, and John never has trouble falling asleep. 4 years have passed since then, and John and Katie have 2 daughters, aged 3 and 1. John and Sharon have a son, who is 3 years old, and a daughter, who is due in 2 months. Every night John falls asleep with a smile on his face. Every night, Katie remembers how stupid she was, and how lucky she is to have John and Sharon still in her life. And she vows to herself that she will never make that mistake again. Every night Sharon thinks how lucky she is that Katie was so stupid. Now she can completely share her life with John, whom she has always loved. Every night I dream of being John. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.